Hey, what's up, you guys? It's Omar Ben Enriquez, your host of Artistic Visions, the show where we like to go in depth with young artists at OCAD, talk about their art, what they like to talk about in their art, and what they would like to talk about in their art. Today, I got a very special guest for a special Grad X episode, Ernesto Cabral de Luna.
Yeah.
How you doing?
I'm great, man. I'm very tired, but I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me back on. After what, 4 years? 3 years?
Yeah, 3 years, because, 2020, 22?
Might have been.
21?
Yeah, 21.
I think it was 20, literally the semester we're back, right? Yeah. No, and you've...
Yeah, I think everyone was wearing masks. So
yes. Yes, you're
pretty,
right. I believe so. And you know, you've come a long way, because you were working for the Raptors back then, but you have been honing your craft for your thesis work, which has just blown me away.
Thanks, man.
Amazing work. And but I'm getting ahead of myself. To the people who don't know you somehow, who are you and what kind of art do you usually make?
My name is Ernesto, and I'm a Mexican lens-based artist. I'm really focused on working with archives, but also working with my own photography. Specifically for my thesis project, it's photos that I took while I went to Mexico for the first time in 10 years. Spent 2 months there in the summer, was able to reconnect with family and my roots, and I just wanted to bring back some photographs to manipulate later on.
So this piece, mining for some sort of continuity, we have a lot of different images, but you're only showing some at Grad X?
Yeah, I mean, space dictated that I could only have a couple, especially because most of the work, it started off as small pieces that I'm enlarging for detail purposes. And it just felt like to just show, I think I'm showing 1, 2, 3, like around 6 images out of a couple dozen. But I will have 2 books. One book has all the photography that I took while I was there.
Oh, wow.
And the other book has kind of like process work for creating the pieces, so people can at least see that the works being shown are part of a much larger body that is probably going to continue in my practice for quite a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, man. I don't even know where to start with these works because there's so much that's gone into it. You know, like you mentioned, you did go on a trip to Mexico, back to the motherland, and had fun with family, I hope, for the most part. For the most part.
For the most part, yeah. Some things happened.
Yeah, other than the some things that happened, you did get to experience a lot of Mexico again.
Yeah.
And, oh, man, there's some beautiful imagery, but I don't even know where to start with. Let's start with this piece, I believe, is at Grad X, right?
Yeah.
And
this is the only one from the ones we're going to show that is at Grad X.
And I just want to talk about it. Like, what are we seeing here with this work?
Yeah, sure. So I guess the whole project started off with me wanting to transfer images onto different types of material, specifically what people consider to be scrap or just kind of like discardable, such as corrugated metal, different pieces of rusted copper and rusted steel, and broken pieces of glass. Corrugated metal is something that spoke to me in terms of I saw it a lot in Mexico, and it reminds me a lot of Mexico. So while I was there, I kept thinking, I would love to take back some from like a site-specific kind of material.
Oh, yeah.
Bring it back, but probably wasn't very feasible to do it with, border and the airplane.
Like,
and
why do you have
everything.
this sheet of metal?
Yeah, I was like, what are you doing? I'm like, mind your business. But within the first week that I was at OCAD, I was looking for material to work with, and lo and behold, I found a whole bunch of corrugated metal that they just gave me for free over at the metal shop. It was left over from another project. And I knew that I wanted to transfer onto it, and I wanted to choose specific images. Most of them, I started off with only 1 panel at first, and then I thought, okay, I'm going to mix 2 panels, see how much I can enlarge 4x6. Most of them are 35 millimeter film frames to begin with, so it's really small, and it's going up to 44 by, I think this one's 60 by 50.
Wow.
And this was the last one that I did. I could have either broken it up into 3 other smaller pieces or 1 big piece, and I just really wanted to see what specifically I was thinking a lot about the disjointedness of hanging it in a way where it's coming off the wall, but it also looks like it's kind of crumbling or kind of falling. The image in itself, it's a photo that I took within my first 2 weeks there. I was in Mexico City. There was a tianguis that was happening right in the Zócalo of Mexico City.
It's a flea market for people who don't know what
tianguis
is.
Yeah, and that's actually the name of the piece, just El Tianguis.
Yeah.
And I was walking with my family. They took me there, and they just wanted to show me, in case I wanted to buy any stuff. I bought a whole bunch of shirts and little gifts for family. And at some moment, I knew I wanted to take a photo because it was so crowded, so busy. And I only had a little point and shoot on me at the time. So I turned on the flash and really quickly turned around, took a photo without even really aiming.
Wow, really?
And I brought it down really fast. That's why there's a motion thing going on at the top.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just kind of a perfect shot for me. I really created everything that I wanted to show with it, the movement, the colors, the people being all squished together. And yeah,
because I mean, in Mexico, this is just a normal occurrence. This is where you go to shop for whatever maybe some fun new things, right?
Yeah.
But in terms of the actual image, this is just it's so beautiful, and I just absolutely love the colors of the flags on top. I don't know exactly what they were.
Just like papel picado.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it's just some design. Added on, but I was wondering because it looked a little bit more on the motion blur side of things, cause it almost the color spreads out on the material, so it was pretty interesting to see.
I found it really interesting how everything in the foreground got frozen pretty well through the flash, but everything in the the top of the image and the background just has this blurry effect. And it was something that I probably if the image came out crisp, I would have probably aimed for this look anyways. So it was just crazy that it happened all within camera. And yeah, there was really no Photoshop that I went into it. I really, really enjoyed it. Specifically, as you said, how the colors come from the top and just kind of spread down the bottom. I thought that was quite beautiful. And also, whenever I transfer onto materials such as corrugated metal, it does get a little bit more dull. So the piece in itself, in person, it's best seen with a spotlight, where it brings out the colors, but the situation that I'm going to have at Grad X is just going to be the overhead light. So much of my work has vibrant colors, so seeing that same vibrancy but a little bit more dull or muted, there is a beauty to that as well. But let's touch on the corrugated metal a little bit, because I'm really intrigued on first why you even decided to start transferring images to physical objects, and I guess why. Because it's not limited to corrugated metal. You have some other pieces here. I'm going to get ahead of myself, but glass and I believe some fabrics as well? Or for the most part, it's glass and copper.
Is this copper?
Yeah, that's copper. The whole series started with that piece, actually. So I was really inspired by exvotos, which are votive paintings that were popularized in 20th century Mexico. Specifically, I'm in a liter class. They were pretty much the mestizo class wanted to thank a specific saint or the Virgin Mary for some miracle that occurred. And since they couldn't just write it out and explain it, they went up to an artist, explain what happened, the artist would paint it, and then the artist in himself would actually write down the event. Then they would put that up on a church, and it was just a thanks kind of thing. Mm-hmm. That became really famous in Mexico because collectors like Frida Kahlo and Diego Rivera, they started collecting them. So now you don't really see too much of them in churches because people just started stealing them. Now it's more of a folk arty tradition. You go to a tianguis and you will see them being sold as things for people to buy and put in their homes. So my mom was really interested in exvotos, and she actually did some research on it when she was doing her PhD. And I was fascinated by it because she went back to Mexico and she brought one home. So there was one in my home that I always looked at, and I thought it was quite beautiful. And I hadn't seen these paintings that were made on metal, for the most part tin. After they ate from a can, they would unroll the tin can and then use that as the base. And because we have so many earthquakes in Mexico, a lot of the times they would fall from the wall, and all the corners would have bends into it. And the rust would start creeping in around the corners. So for me, I kept thinking about okay, metal, rust, bent corners. I want to play with this idea. And in researching the work, I have seen that a lot of Mexican artists are using the language of exvotos, but not they'll use fabrics, or they'll embroider it, or they'll paint it onto a canvas, taking it further. But I hadn't seen anyone do a photo version. So that's where the inspiration came from. And then it just kind of became a material exploration overall. Yeah, I really wanted to get this feeling of fading memories. Is a memory receding or revealing itself? And yeah, since I started working with archival photos at the start of this project, it was just, I wanted to work with photos about Mexico and with photos with my family. And since I hadn't been in 10 years, I was like, I'm just going to look into my family photos. And I still ended up doing that even though I brought back so many photos from Mexico. The project is very much split between this nostalgia and longing for something that I never got to experience, and then also me creating my own archive while I was in Mexico. So
Yeah, no, man, I don't know where to start because there's so much that goes into this. But I'll just say from this piece of the corrugated metal, what stood out to me is immediately when you said, because corrugated metal is like all over Mexico, I immediately thought that when I was like looking at this piece, because I'm like, oh, like this like kind of looks like, you know, that fenced off area of like that one guy who's just like been living there for a couple of years, you know, and he just settled in. And
it's roofs. It's like I find it very interesting how. Sorry to cut you off, but I found it really interesting how for me it spoke to me about Mexico, and I knew that probably other Latinas would like understand this as well, speaking about South America overall. But I didn't realize how much of a global South, material it is. And it wasn't until I started having friends that came in and see it, friends from Ethiopia, Vietnam, from Philippines, from like all these other places in Africa. And everyone's like, oh, wow, yeah, this reminds me of home. This reminds me of my aunt's home, like the roof that they have, or it reminds me of my uncle's garage. Like, whereas here, a lot of people are seeing it and they're like, oh, yeah, this is what they make sheds with. This is what they make garage doors with. And I find it like it just has a very different connotation here because of the fact that you can't use this as walls. You need insulation. You need wood in Canada and colder places up in the north. So that for me felt really nice because for the most part, I do speak about Latinidad, mestizaje. I speak about immigration. And while I'm doing it from a Mexican perspective, as a Mexican-Canadian immigrant, it's really nice when it also resonates with different immigrants or people from other cultures that are also, they understand what I'm doing. That feels really nice. And that to have that connection with so many people, that because this is such a material that is very popular, or not popular, but you see it populated everywhere because it's an easy material to get to, you know, fix and patch up things, and that's what it's cheap, it's light, it's easy to move.
Even how I like how the fact that you have it kind of like not on the same level. It's all like kind of like just a little bit raised or a little bit mismatched. Like it does remind me of just like those people who just like just put it in the ground and that's how it sticks there.
Yeah, without cutting it.
Exactly. And I wanted to say too, I really do like the designs, like the flags up on top, because it kind of gives me this feeling of like the spray paint, which also reminds me a lot of like Mexico. You see that at least where I was living, like I saw a lot of spray paint on metal, and it just would shine kind of nicely, like a little matte, but still have that like shine to it. And
a lot of people were because the first piece that I did, which I think we're gonna show later, people were saying like, oh, this is starting to make me think about like street art and spray paint, and they're like, I don't know if that's what you're going for. I'm like, I don't necessarily think that's a bad relation, because I am between the metal and like specifically the corrugated metal and the broken glass. Like these are sites that I remember walking down the street in Mexico, even from when I was a kid, let alone from when I was there. So to me, like if it makes you think of streets, whether it's Canadian streets or Mexican streets, I think that is successful in my opinion.
I mean, we'll move on to this other piece here. I do want to ask at the same time, however, you know, because you were already touching on it before and how you said that this was kind of the first piece, but you know, who or what was kind of the inspiration behind creating this thesis work?
It's a good question. I mean, like Exvotos overall, as I was saying, and also family photos, because at first I was confused as to like, am I gonna literally recreate an Exvoto? Am I gonna like cut out images of the Virgin Mary and put it in a corner? Am I gonna take a photo of me praying? Am I gonna like what exactly am I gonna do? But I actually had an uncle that passed away last year, and I wanted to send my parents a photo of him. And I'm looking through like all the archives because when my parents moved to BC, I scanned all of the photos because I knew someday I wanted to do something with them. And I'm looking through photos and I keep sending them because I found that one eventually, but even afterwards, I was just kind of like nostalgic and being like, oh, look at my uncle here and look at my cousin here. And, oh, mom, you and my dad when you guys were dating and your friends and everything. And then I started thinking, like, I just want to play with these photos overall. So, overall, my parents and my family were the big inspiration. And this piece actually is a combination of 4 different images. They're all images that my mom had taken with her friends at different beaches, some in high school, some in university, like just a mixture. And there's 3 people that you can see. They're very abstracted, but there's a person standing that's sipping a beer. That's my Uncle Tato. And then there's a man lying down. I think that's my uncle, who they call El Delfín. And then at the very back, barely visible to most people, but I can see like my tia Ime, who's my mom's sister, and I stayed with her while I was in Mexico. And then there's like rocks to the right, and then you can see a bit of beach and sand on the bottom. Overall, I did it on copper thinking like I want to get this warm beach vibe to it, but also there's the blue sky that's also a combination of I think 2 different photos at the top.
Oh wow.
And
okay.
yeah, I was thinking about like when you look out into the ocean and the sky kind of combine at some point. Like I kind of wanted to get that idea.
Yeah, no, I noticed that those motifs that you had from like the past works from last time. I don't know if you remember the last time when with basketball cards, and that the like ripping up but like collage kind of style is so present still in your work, and that motif is like so interesting because you have other works here. I'll start the slideshow, but like there's other works, especially the glass, like this one too.
That one was the first one that I was telling you that I did on corrugated metal.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, like glass one kind of because it actually gave me more of that message that you were saying before of like having these ideas and this kind of fragmented, although it's like archival, it's not like you fully know what the story is.
Oh, absolutely not.
Right.
If anything, I make up my own story.
Yeah.
Which is something that I found really funny because, you started looking through these images. I mean, I was looking at them as a kid, and then I scan them, and I'm editing them, and I'm printing them. I'm like looking at them constantly. So the more I look at them, the more I think I know what the story is. Yes. And I'll start talking to my parents. Or I posted one on my story, and I was like, oh, this is my great-grandma Socorro. And my mom was like, no, that's her sister, actually. And I was like, okay, never mind. So if, like, that piece is made and, like, has a title, it's going to be my great-grandma Socorro crossed out. Actually, it's her sister. Like I like the idea of being corrected because at the moment, like, my parents, my uncles, my aunts, they're the ones that can tell me the facts. If not, in the end, I'm just going to be creating a fictional reality of my family, which it's kind of like this whole idea of like I'm creating an alternate reality where I'm in Mexico as a kid. I'm growing up with my cousins through my parents' photos.
Yes.
Also, in these glass ones, for the most part, I'm using photos of my abuelo Luis, and he was my mom's dad. He passed away when my mom was in her 20s, so I never got to meet him. And I had only seen maybe like 20, 30 photos of him in my life. I thought that's like all that existed. And when I went back to Mexico, I looked through all of the photos that my grandma had and left with my aunt when she passed away, and all of my aunt's photos. And I asked her, like, can I bring them back and digitize them? A, to have them in like the family, and B, to be able to use them in this work. And it felt like I was meeting him for the first time, and I'm putting together like pieces of his identity, which is, I'm really happy that you used the word fragmented because that's kind of like what the work is about overall. I mean, all the pieces are fragmented, right? Like the corrugated metal is different pieces. Even like the book that I have at Grad is fragmented into 2. It's like a diptych, but I consider it to be one book, even though it's like 2 different spines. But I've been wanting to make work about my grandpa for a very long time. I just hadn't really found the way to do it. And I'm sure that this will develop, and I will continue to find other ways to speak about meeting him for the first time. But yeah, being able to see photos of him as a kid, marrying my grandma, with my mom on Christmas, like different moments. Like there's so many images. The ones that I'm using are just the ones that spoke to me at the moment and like spoke to what I'm trying to do with the material. But it was truly like, felt like therapy, you know, very therapeutic to work through that. So
Yeah, no, this is some outstanding work. I'm really excited to see what you do have up at GradX. Do you actually know where you'll be presenting at GradX?
Yeah, I'm showing with my friend Delali Coffee.
Shout out to Lolly.
Shout out to Delali, amazing photographer, and we're both showing in room 404, 411. Oh man, fourth floor, right beside the painting studios.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yeah,
Perfect.
Hope to have you come by.
Oh, I'll definitely be checking those out because these works are just absolutely outstanding. Because you know that idea of the fragmentation, that like I already saw a little bit of that within the past works with the basketball cards, where you know you're kind of going through the history of this player and like this different jersey, different colors that they wear.
Yeah.
But to do it in a historical sense, but also on a personal level where it's like you yourself are still trying to understand who this person is in your family, and they have this I found it really funny you said El Delfín because there's a story behind that.
Yeah,
and it's
exactly.
a story that runs in the family.
Yeah, and it just kind of it sticks, and it becomes like I can't even tell you. I'm sure I'll remember his name when I walk away, but like to me he's like El Tío Delfín, like done, you know. Tato, like also known as El Nariz, like that's his name, you know. And yeah, I think there's a beauty in trying to like figure that out, and or even seeing photos where like I've seen all these uncles, which you know they're not actually uncles, they're my mom's friends, but they're pretty much uncles, and I'll see them when they were in high school, and I didn't realize like my mom went to high school with some of them. I thought that they met in university, and like seeing them so young when he probably wasn't called El Delfín and he wasn't called El Nariz, you know, like, and how that friendship has developed. And it was really nice to be able to see a lot of them when I also went back because, they're also like family. So
Yeah, no, 100%.
But yeah, the story behind it is, I like that you brought that up because all of it has something.
It's
right?
true.
Yeah.
I mean, I like with my aunts and uncles, like they all have their own story with their nickname, even though it might be like a little small nickname. It's still like because we called him this. That's why, you know. Like,
right. Yeah.
And so this work is absolutely outstanding. I'm really excited to see it in person. I maybe should bring my parents to see this.
Please do. I
some
really
Mexican representation.
I want to have like a
awesome.
Mexican night, or like I just invite all my
sick.
Mexican friends, or overall Latino night. Invite all Latino friends and like have them come see. Specifically, like the pieces, I think it will resonate, but specifically the book and just like the moments that I chose, because a lot of street photography, but like it's broken up into different chapters. One chapter's street photography, and it's not even all of the work that I did. It's just like a snippet. And then other things are like a lucha libre fight, which I know you love those photos. A bull riding fight, or a bull riding and a cockfight, and just like cultural events, things that I never got to experience, things that I sought out. And I would ask my family like, "Oh, can we do this? Can we do that?" And they're like, "Why do you want to do that?" I'm like, because I've never done that. They're like, that's like for kids, or that's like, that doesn't happen anymore. Like when I asked for a cockfight, they're like, that's illegal. I'm like, I bet they still happen somewhere. And not that I'm trying to see like, you know, two chickens kill each other, but like, it's more like I focused a lot of these events, not even necessarily on the main attraction, but everything that went around it, the culture and the people that make it happen. That to me was like what was important about seeing these things unfold.
100%.
And I feel like I took photos from two perspectives, from an outsider perspective and from an insider perspective. Obviously a Mexican, obviously I have like a Mexican accent, but also I haven't been there in years, and like if anything, people look at me as like the Canadian when I'm there, but also they realize that like, well, I know about our culture and I know about who we are and where we come from, and I want to be there, and I don't want to shoot like from a fly on the wall perspective. Like I want to be in the event, and it was just such a wonderful time. I can't wait to go back and be able to experience a lot more things.
100%. To immerse yourself in that culture is something different than just fly on the wall, right?
Yeah.
So, and to do that is to also immerse other people viewing your amazing art. Before we end off this interview, I would like to ask you one question, the final question of the interview, sadly. Let's go back to first year, if I can, and what kind of advice would you give yourself from now knowing all the things you know now? What kind of advice would you give yourself to your past self?
Well, First year for me was about 10 years ago. It's taken me quite a while to finish.
That just means more knowledge for you.
It really does. Yeah, it feels like I did my master's in the last couple of years. But
Yeah.
I guess a mixture of like trust the process, but also like align yourself with people that will bring the best out of you. I've had great friendships throughout my whole time, but yeah, the last couple of years, I think I've really started to see that the people that inspire you are the people that you have close to you, and they will push you to make greater stuff and also care about your work. And obviously, like when you're 18, 19, you don't really care about school, you care about partying, you care about, and that's fine. I'm not saying like to any first years, don't do that, like enjoy it. But yeah, a mixture of trust the process, but also like have faith in the work that you do. Because for a long time too, I was like, yeah, I don't even make good work. Like, why am I doing this? I always thought that I was going to drop out eventually. And when I was put in academic probation, I was like, no, okay, I actually want to do this. I just need to like actually focus and apply myself. And it's no coincidence that when you start doing the readings, you start getting better grades, you start doing better art, you start being able to explain it better. So yeah, just apply yourself a little bit more. Ernesto from first year.
I mean, that's fair. You know, do experience those parties while you have the time.
Yeah, always. I'm hungover right now. I just went
that is true.
to a
I
party
saw
last night. Yeah.
That's just the Mexican in us. You know, we just, have those.
So many of those photos that I took, parties.
Yeah,
just all parties, and yeah, it's just a matter of what are you trying to get out of art school? Because I think I saw a lot of people that have finished, and then because they don't have an assignment anymore, they haven't made any work. And we're not here to make art for assignments. We're here to make art for ourselves, for our culture, for our people, whatever reason it might be. And yeah, just always remember that.
100%. I totally agree with that. Thank you so much, Ernesto, for coming on the show. But
gracias, Elmer.
Gracias, muchas gracias. But before we end off this episode, is there anything that you'd like to plug, promote, or put out there for the world to know?
Sure, yeah. I mean, you can follow me on Instagram at a broken iris. And yeah, I'm going to have work at Grad from May 1st to May 5th. But I'm also going to be showing some other pieces that will not be up at school at X Space on May 10th. It's going to be going until July 6th. So yeah, would love to have people come out to the opening. It's going to be a fun party.
Yeah, that's us Mexicans, we know how to party. I don't doubt Ernesto knows how to set one up. So no worries there. But again, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. And I hope you had as fun as I did doing this little interview.
Oh, I really did. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you. And thank you for watching this episode of Artistic Visions. Cannot wait to see you guys very, very soon. Take it easy, and I hope you have a great week, weekend, or general day.
Hasta luego.
Hasta luego. Bye.